Okay, so we're looking at simplifying complex fractions. So these are fractions where you have one fraction over another fraction. So the key thing is when you work with these things is basically doing a form of fraction busters. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply top and bottom by the common denominator of both the top and bottom to be able to clear the fractions. So right here, if I look at this, I've got y and x and y. My common denominator is xy. So I'm going to multiply top by xy, and I'll multiply the bottom by xy. So then I'm going to distribute in, just to the tops, each of these. So I get x squared y, xy squared, so it'll be x squared y over y minus xy squared over x, xy over x plus xy over y. Now I'm going to reduce. So the y's will cancel. X's, and the y's. Now remember, we could still reduce further. So right here we have the difference of two squares. So this guy will factor to x plus y, x minus y. And x plus y and y plus x are the same values. So I can reduce those. And I'm left with x minus y. Okay, so let's look at another example. So I look at what my denominators are. And I'm going to multiply top and bottom to clear out these fractions. Well, I need a 2. And I need an x. Actually, I need x squared. And I need at least a y. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2x squared y. So as you bring them in, this first one, I'm going to do 2x squared y over 2xy. Now, if you're comfortable with it, you can see about reducing at the same time. But if you're not, go through and just do the tops on each one of these. So if I went over, I'd have 2x squared y over 2xy, 2x squared y squared over 2x squared, 2x squared y over 2xy. And I have 2x squared y here again. This becomes 2x squared y squared. And then I could do my reducing. So now I could see, okay, y's cancel, 2 cancels, one of the x's. So that needs to be just an x. Here, 2x squared, left with a y squared. Here, I'm going to be left with just an x. Here, I'm left with 2y. And here, I'll be left with the y squared. Now, if you are comfortable with it, you can try to bring them in at the same time. I go 2x squared y over 2xy. Okay, that leaves me with an x. I have 2x squared is going to cancel with 2x squared. Leaves me with y squared. 2x squared y over 2xy. Okay, I've canceled the 2, the y, and one of the x's. Here I'm going to cancel this the x squared when I bring it into this term right here. Here I'm going to cancel both the 2x squareds. I have y times y is y squared. So it's possible to go over and reduce it real quick. Now, this one looks really messy, but it actually was one of the easier ones because I didn't have to do any of the other simplification. There's nothing to factor. So this one's pretty much done. Okay, but we got to be careful in certain cases, and that's what I want to look at here. So again, we're going to look at our common denominator, and if you have a whole number, it's just like having it over 1. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by xy, because I need an x here and I have xy here. So distributing in, I get xy minus xy squared over x, xy squared over x, minus x squared y over y. When we reduce it, I'm just going to get xy minus y squared, And over here, I'll get y squared minus x squared. Okay, now I look at factoring. So I could factor out a y, leaves me with x minus y. This is the difference of two squares. That factors to y plus x, y minus x. And this is where you have to be careful. X minus y and y minus x are almost exactly a match. They're perfect opposites. So you see this one's kind of like flipped over the other one. When you cancel this type, these guys cancel to equal -1. So that's the difference. When they match perfectly, it cancels to give you 1. If they're opposites, perfect opposites, it matches to give you -1. So that gives me my final answer of -y over y plus x. Be careful. One of the common mistakes is students want to cancel the y's. You cannot cancel across addition or subtraction. It has to be multiplication when you go and do any canceling. So that's multiplied, y times x minus y. So I've got this term times this term. This is a term that has two parts to it. So be careful whenever you're reducing on the problems, and watch out for the ones that are going to give you a -1 as a simplification.